Welcome back to the Varsity Voices High School Sports Talk. I'm Joe Frevaletti, and with me is Dan Frevaletti, my co-host. Week 1 of the Chicago Catholic League football season is officially in the books. And what a way to kick things off, from statement wins to nail-biting finishes. We saw it all this weekend. Today's Week 1 recap episode will take you through the biggest storylines, standout performances, and early impressions of who's looking strong right out of the gate. Whether your team pulled off a huge victory or is regrouping for Week 2, we've got you covered right here. Dan, we had some really good games this week, didn't we? Week 1, I don't know if I expected that, but really kind of turned out that way.
If you are looking to buy or sell a home, contact RE/MAX Realtor and Circle of Legends recipient Christopher Cobb. Let Chris's extensive negotiating experience work to guide you on all of your real estate buying and selling needs. Contact Christopher now to discuss the right strategy for your personalized real estate buying and selling plan. His number is 630-420-0070, or you can visit his website at christophercobb.com. You know, I felt like there were more blowouts last year, and there were a lot better games, as a whole. I mean, we had our blowouts or two and a surprise, but we got good games and really good performances. So yeah, it was a great weekend that went end to end. Really, it was Thursday to Saturday, and which was kind of cool.
Yeah, I find that interesting too, Dan, that how we always say that the NFL kind of pushes down to college, college pushes down to high school. So now instead of all the high school games on a Friday night or whatever, or Friday and Saturday, now we got Thursday games as well. I would imagine there's going to be games on Sunday, in the coming years, maybe Mondays as well. I find that interesting, but I like it. I like that they kind of spread them out of it.
Yeah, I think the public league has to do that for space purposes, in some of the fields. So, but I think the more of these regionalized games, Joe, that we've talked about, where powers like Mount Carmel goes to play Archbishop Moeller, if those are games like we had on Saturday between those two, people will want to have that on TV. Then you will start seeing, because they've got to work their schedule. So yeah, it would not surprise me to see it start to spread out a little bit as there get to be more high level teams, regional and national.
Yeah, and we can't start our recap episode in Week 1, Dan, without at least mentioning or talking about the coverage, right? As far as some of the games are concerned, the broadcasts, some of the follow-up coverage as well, whether it's in the digital newspapers or something else. Have you found it a little lacking over the last couple of days, trying to look for some information here? ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease, is a devastating illness that weakens the muscles we use to move, swallow, and breathe. Over time, it becomes fatal. On average, people live just 2 to 5 years after diagnosis. There's no cure yet, but thanks to research and clinical trials at the Les Turner ALS Center at Northwestern Medicine, we're getting closer every day. This fight is personal for me and Dan. Our brother-in-law passed away from ALS a couple of years ago. That's why I want to invite you to join the ALS Walk for Life on Saturday, September 20th at Soldier Field, hosted by Chicago's Les Turner ALS Foundation. Funds raised support their mission to provide comprehensive care for people living with ALS, their families, and to advance life-changing research. Come be part of the movement. There'll be food trucks, live entertainment, and fun for the whole family. Together, we can honor loved ones, support those battling ALS today, and bring hope for a cure tomorrow. Learn more or register now at alswalkforlife.org.
Joe, it was kind of the spark that spurred our podcast on, was to kind of be if anything, somewhere where we're almost like an aggregator. Is that a word?
It is.
Yes. So
it's a good word, although we might create an episode out of it, the aggregates. You will be the aggregates.
The aggregates. So So it feels very fragmented. Now I think like Shaw Media, the Daily Herald, sometimes they do a good job, and they
They
can't
do a
have
pretty good
people
job. Yeah.
everywhere, right?
Right.
But I don't know if some of this, if people would tell us, well, some of that comes back to the schools that have to get us the information, and there might be, but as far as broadcasts and that, it is still all over the place. Feels like the wild wild west. I know
Yeah.
NFHS kind of has the rights to it, but man, when you find like when games are advertised, almost on YouTube and some of these other things, and then you click and it goes to a weird
It's
website
not there.
that's a
Right.
nothing site. It's almost like there's some clickbait out there. So
Right.
yes,
Yeah.
there is still some of the same things that prompted our podcast, still exist, a year plus later.
Yeah. And that's why we're here, Dan.
Yes, that's
I
why
mean,
we are here.
yeah, it's part of the reason why we're here, I
Right.
should say.
Right.
But we're going to try and bring you the best information that we can find. And some of it will be from us actually being able to watch the games,
Yeah.
but we may be lacking somewhere because the coverage is not great. And even though we try and we try really hard to get whatever information we can, unfortunately, we're not always able to get enough, at least enough for us. That makes us feel good about what we're kind of putting out there from a
Yeah.
podcast standpoint.
I
Yeah.
will say a good thing is the ability to find and watch games after the fact.
Right.
That you can roll through a game pretty quickly. I find that I can get through in about a half an hour of a game on Huddle or NFHS, and just kind of fast forwarding and
You're speeding it up 1.5, 2 times
yeah,
watching through it. Yeah.
like people listen to the podcast. Yes, and so they
Right.
yeah. So I do appreciate
Yeah.
that. Coaches are better about that. I think there was probably a time, and there probably still are some coaches that are like, I don't want my stuff out there.
Yeah.
But
I think that's true.
yeah,
I
I'm
really
sure they
do.
have a choice.
Yeah.
But we really appreciate those that allow it, because it does make it fun. It does make us see things. There are players that, to me, like, whoa, when you watch a film that you wouldn't get otherwise.
Right.
Yeah.
And the people want it, Dan. So that would be one, like, a message I would give to the coaches, to the administrations, to the schools, as far as what information they put out there. I can understand some of the coaches kind of wanting to hold things back,
Yeah.
but there is an audience out there that wants this information, that kind of craves this
In this age,
information.
for sure.
Yes. So let's give it to them.
Yeah.
All right.
You know what some coaches would say when you say you message for the coaches, people want it?
Yes, I do. And you probably can't say it on our podcast because
I'll clean it up. I don't care.
I don't care. I kind of look at this through the lens of you sometimes, Dan, being a former coach. And sometimes I'll look at things and say, what would Dan say as a former coach? And sometimes that pops into my head. I don't care, whether you can find the information or not. I'm not giving it to you. I'm not putting my roster out there with the right numbers on it.
Oof,
I'm
rough.
I'm not doing any of that because any littlest edge that a coach can maintain over the course of from game to game or over the course of a season, they want to. And
Yeah.
I understand that. But
Yeah.
boy,
And
from
especially
our
like
perspective, it's not good.
right. And especially like this, where you see players that didn't make the newspaper or something like that. So if they can get on your radar as a coach, if I know I play a team week 6,
Yeah.
and I can see this film and like, whoa, we got to figure out a way to block that guy, or
Yes.
we have to. So
we got to stop this kid.
Yeah,
Jesus.
we've got to stop this kid.
And there's a couple of those, Dan, that you and I mean, we knew were out there and were talented players and maybe going to contribute. We didn't know who the starting quarterbacks were going to be for a couple of these teams. And all of a sudden, week 1, boom, they're there.
Yeah.
And good.
Yeah.
So now the secret's out. There's
Right.
no more secrets. So maybe from here on, the coaches will share more information with
Put it
us.
all out there.
Right.
As long as Varsity Voices has it, then we're good.
That's all that's important.
Yes.
All right. So let's go through, Dan, our recap
All right.
episode. And we'll tease our listeners a little bit and say, you got to stick around here because at the end of this episode, what are we going to introduce, Dan?
Oh, got it. He's right here at my feet. He
Yes,
doesn't
he
look much
is.
like a defensive player right now.
He's very tired.
Yes,
Yeah,
very
he had
tired.
a long weekend,
Yeah,
holiday weekend.
Zuko's
Yeah,
dog of the week, week one,
right.
2025, and there's a lot of great choices out there, Joe.
S-
Too many, but
Yeah,
some guys that I like to say jump off the film.
yes, and some great defensive performances in week one. So, anyways, we will get to that. But before we get to that, let's get to our recap, Dan. And we're going to start with the Blue Division. And we're going to start with the maybe the biggest game of the weekend or of week one. And that was Mount Carmel against Archbishop Moeller in Cincinnati. Two nationally ranked teams. You know, Mount Carmel travels out there for this game, so you know they've got that to deal with as well. So, give us a recap on that game, Dan.
Yeah, Joe, it was essentially an instant classic. It was, when I talked about games wanting to be on TV, had they to do it over again, this would be one because it was an outstanding game. It was back and forth. There was hard hitting. There was, even though the score was high, 43-42.
Right.
Mount Carmel pulls this out on the final play of the game, a 2-point conversion. I mean, it was it
Amazing.
was it
Yeah.
was everything you'd hope for out of highly ranked teams. Every player you've heard about from Mount Carmel was a factor. Quentin Burrell, Arshawn Thornton, Dowling, Bone Crusher, and Puma. Roman Ikwabikwe is a dude on defense at linebacker.
Yeah.
So yeah, everything you've heard about Mount Carmel was true, and they had it. They got the ball with, I think, just under 2 minutes to play and orchestrated a drive to win the game. Maybe still some defensive stuff that they might like to clean up, but they looked outstanding. Outstanding.
Yeah. So worthy of their initial ranking from a national standpoint,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And maybe from a state standpoint as well. I mean, everybody's got them ranked number one in the state, and they're bumping up to 8A, obviously.
Yeah, they
Um,
looked the part. They
yeah.
looked the part for sure.
All right. Good. And the only other thing I had to say about that was, we talked about who's going to play quarterback, right, for Mount Carmel now that Jack Elliott is gone, and Emmett Dowling really, I mean, he put his name out there, put himself on the map. I think he threw for what, almost 400 yards or
Yeah,
maybe 400 yards in
yeah.
this game.
It looked every bit like what you're used to seeing Mount Carmel look like over the past year plus.
All
And,
right,
and
good.
he
Yeah,
was great.
they're going to be exciting to
Yeah,
watch
they
this
are.
year.
They
Yeah,
are. I said early in the year, Joe, they might look a lot different. They look very similar. Yeah, they
very
have great
similar.
passing
Right.
game. They know where their players are, so they
Yeah,
found a way, to get those guys the ball. Quentin
they
Burrell is
just
almost unstoppable.
really,
Yeah,
huh? They just might be bigger, which
yeah,
is a
they're
problem
big.
for
They are
everybody
big.
else,
They're really big.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, they're really big and really talented.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So let's go to another game in the Blue Division. That was Brother Rice versus Valparaiso. So this was, Brother Rice, who we know is a very, very good team, traveling to Valparaiso, Indiana to take on another good team that was 8-4 last year. But Brother Rice kind of exerted their kind of dominance or influence over this. They won 43-19 over Valparaiso. They were able to dominate on the ground with Jameson Davis. I think they scored 4 touchdowns running the ball in this game. CJ Gray, who we've had on, quarterback for Brother Rice, had a really good game, threw for over 200 yards. He had the touchdown pass as well. Brother Rice's special teams got in on the action as well with a block punt for a touchdown. So, Brother Rice showed everything that you would want to show in week one, with their offense, special teams, defense, all playing well, and they come away with a big victory over a good Valparaiso team, and now they got to prepare for a tough CCL matchup coming up this Friday against Marist.
Yeah, that'll be a good one. Yeah, I was impressed because they scored, just like you said, TDs, rushing, passing, block punt, interceptions. Yeah, they did it all. They showed it all in week one.
Yep, they did.
They're going to be someone to be reckoned with for sure.
Okay. All right, good. So let's move on to another team in the blue division, which we had some questions about as far as, who's going to replace some key players, but Loyola Academy against Maryville, Indiana.
Yeah, the future became the present, Joe, in that game. As they played both quarterbacks, but Matthew Lee, Jordan McKinley, and Mello Maldonado all kind of not first year guys, but first year as the headliners, played big roles in their victory, over Maryville, Indiana, 21-14. It was Lee's late touchdown pass to Teddy Kurzweil that provided the margin of victory. They had to come back in this. They were down early. They looked a little sluggish, isn't the right word, but just like it took them a bit to get rolling. Kind of how you've seen Loyola in the past,
right?
And
okay.
I said in our preview episode that Marist might be a team that could go undefeated, but it just might be a lot of close games. This is kind of what I was talking about, but it was Loyola, not Marist.
Right.
They just kind of took a little while to get going. They looked really good in spurts. They looked like they were still learning, in other sections, but they're so well coached. They play very sound, and if they can get Jordan McKinley the football, good things are going to happen.
That is a man amongst boys, isn't it?
Yep.
And he's only a sophomore.
It's unbelievable to think he's only a sophomore.
Yeah. Yeah, so to think that teams have to deal with him over the next several years, including this year, I don't know how you stop that kid. I really don't.
And it's going to be lead to McKinley, and Don Maloney played too, and played well. So they all did good things. We'll see if they continue with that as we move on. That splitting time at QB.
Okay. All right, good. So the other game in the blue division was St. Ignatius, and they traveled out to St. Louis to play St. Louis University. This game was not the start that they were hoping for. St. Ignatius, they lost 22-3 to St. Louis University. So last year, St. Ignatius scored 56 points in last year's win against St. Louis, and they were only able to manage 3 points this year. In the first quarter, they got a field goal at kind of the start of the game, and that was it. So the rest of the game was kind of a defensive battle, with the score was 3-0 at the half.
Yeah.
St. Ignatius up on St. Louis. And then Ignatius kind of shot themselves in the foot the rest of the game. They had a couple costly mistakes. They had a second half fumble deep in their own territory. They had a punt blocked, which was returned 40 yards for a touchdown. So things didn't go the way that Ignatius probably wanted them to. And some of the things that you and I maybe alluded to in some of our earlier episodes and kind of our preview episodes was, where's the offense going to come from St. Ignatius?
Yeah.
And, we're still not sure. We didn't get any answers, Dan. So, hopefully they'll get on track next week when they host, fellow CCL team DePaul Prep. But they've got some work to do, in my opinion.
Yeah. Is it too soon to do a backs against the wall?
It is.
All right. All right, I might have to change a couple of these comments for a couple.
It's too soon for BATW. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, we'll hold that for probably one more week, maybe two more weeks.
One more
two
week.
More week.
One more week. Oh yeah, some of these schools you look at their schedules.
I know. Yeah, the schedules are tough.
Yep. You better figure it out.
And if you don't figure it out in the first two games and then you head into the CCL schedule, you're in trouble.
Right. Like Ignatius, I feel like they can get better as the year goes on. I think they're
Yeah,
that kind of team. But dang,
I hope
if
so.
they could just find a different schedule for the first 4 or 5 weeks.
Right. All right, so here we go. That's the blue division. Let's move on to the green. And the first game here, Dan, was St. Rita and Marist. Great game. Two CCL teams came down to the wire again here. But what did you see here? What do you want to tell us about this game?
You know, it was a rivalry game, like you mentioned, and it did not disappoint. Kind of a back and forth affair with touchdown, go ahead touchdown. Marist would tie it up. Marist take the lead. St. Rita would tie it up. It was the names that we kind of predicted. Stephen Armbruster was outstanding, just an all around game. Threw for 100 and I saw 165 and 183 yards reported. So
Yeah,
he was really good. Ranford another score. Marist looks really good as well. Though they have that big offensive line. Rico Schreiber up front, and I can't remember. I have Bartolotta. I know it's his last name's Bartolotta. Is it Kevin?
right.
It might be Kevin
Yeah,
Bartolotta and,
I'm
and the
not
big
sure.
boys at Marist served notice in a loss. They are gonna be able to pound you a little bit. And this is a big back that doesn't go down. Little old school feeling here.
Yeah.
That he's gonna be a handful for a lot of people moving forward.
Yeah, it does. It did look like, and I saw a couple of clips or watched a couple of clips, and both these teams are really good.
Yeah, they
you know,
are.
and I picked St. Rita as a possible undefeated pick for the year, but you know going up against Marist, and Marist has a really good defense, and I feel like the guys that they needed to step up St. Rita, like Armbruster and some of the other players on the offense, they did that,
Yeah,
when it was needed. So I feel like that bodes well for them for the upcoming Chicago Catholic League
yeah.
schedule.
Experienced star power is
Mm-hmm.
really really nice to have.
Yeah, it is. All right. So how about IC and St. Mary's Southside, Dan?
IC looked feisty and athletic, and they swarmed all over St. Mary's Southside. IC
Yeah.
capitalized on some early mistakes, harassed Southside all day with a very aggressive defense. Boy, we talked about their numbers a little bit. What they don't have in numbers, they make up for in talent.
Mm-hmm.
And they look. It at times looked like a youth football game. I don't have the final written down, Joe. It was like 30. Was it 33-7?
I think it
It
was
was a lot too little.
33-7 or 33-14,
Yeah,
something
a
like
lot
that.
too
Yeah.
little because they
Yeah.
just swarm you. They swarm you defensively. I'm really interested to see how that looks and translates into the CCL.
Right.
But they certainly look like a problem. They've got um, Foley Calcagno, on both sides of the ball. He's playing really well. Tamarian Garner, is a player that found that I was really watching. As the game wore on, he makes a lot of difference. Played two quarterbacks. Played a sophomore and junior. So Nate Lang is a junior. So the sophomore also got some snaps, but they look really good, especially defensively.
Yeah, they did look good. And I think, from what I saw, I think their offense is going to be good enough to keep them in games. They, like you said, they've got some real talent on both sides of the ball. I like what I saw from Nate Lang at quarterback,
Yeah,
and I know they were far enough ahead where they were able to play the sophomore too, who's also very
yeah,
talented.
athletic.
So yeah, both sides of the ball,
Yeah,
offense and
they
defense.
look really athletic.
They've got a lot of talent, and um, I like this start for them versus what went on last year with them. And even though they won this game last year against St. Mary's, it was a tough battle. They won it in overtime and that, but this year I feel like they kind of sent a statement week one that hey, last year was an anomaly, and we are here this year, so
Yeah,
you're going to have to deal with
because
us,
St.
right?
Mary's Southside is not bad. That is not a.
No.
They look good. They had some talent. They had some strong receivers. So for IC to dominate, it kind of says something.
Yes. Okay. All right. The next game in the Green Division was Nazareth against Kankakee. And I don't know how many years in a row they played Kankakee first game of the year, but Kankakee is a rated team or ranked team, I should say, and Nazareth seemed to have their way with them. Dan, what did you see?
Yeah, I saw that it took them a little bit to remember just how good Trenton Walker, Jake Sistone, and company are. But when they did, it was absolutely explosive. They
Yeah,
also played two quarterbacks, Jackson Faia, um, the transfer in got some playing time, and Frankie Nichols. Both
yeah,
both had good efforts, but they had great play on all sides of the ball on all phases of the game. And kind of again, it was a surprise at how they kind of pulled away in the fourth quarter. That hasn't happened in this rivalry.
right. Yeah,
Kankakee's got a new coach who was a defensive coordinator, so it's kind of thought that it might be a little more defensive than it was. But Nazareth looked really good, quarterbacks on point, and get the ball in the air. I think we said in the offseason, Joe, some of these schools have to find a way just to get these kids the ball, and
right.
Nazareth has done that for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's good, and that bodes well for them, for this season because they do have some really talented players on that team, especially in the wide receiver position and Walker and Sestone. So, if they got somebody who can get them the ball, I would say that's all they need to do at this point,
Yes,
and play good defense.
right,
Yeah.
right. That's it, and they're
Yeah.
they're likely to do that for sure.
All
I
right.
wouldn't write
Good.
them off.
I would not either. Yeah.
No,
I don't care what division they end up in.
right. I
I
would
would not
not
write them
write them
off.
off.
No. All right. So the next game in the Green Division, and I think you talked a little bit about this game because this was on a Thursday or this past Thursday, and this was St. Francis and Kenwood. You mentioned this on our Friday Night Blitz wrap up, but give us kind of the thumbnail on this game. This
Sure.
game.
Yeah, Thursday night and a barn burner of a game. Kenwood really, really played well early on. Had a 2 touchdown lead, I think, in the fourth quarter. But Brock Phillip, St. Francis quarterback, introduced himself to the Catholic League. That's for sure. Threw
Yes,
for
he sure
over
did.
300 yards. He figured out he's got awesome receivers in Milivojevic, Tanner Glock, and Zach Washington, and it was a touchdown pass to Milivojevic late in the game that earned St. Francis a victory. So again, they look like they've reloaded, look very good. We'll see. Kenwood was able to do some things offensively, but they look really good too. I mean, and I think I can't. Michael O'Brien from the Sun Times, I think he said, this was the best that public school has looked since COVID to him.
Yeah.
So that's good. That's good to see. But St. Francis, they stuck with it, persevered, and pulled out a victory late.
Yeah, I think a lot of the people out there who kind of predict games and scores and that kind of thing, we try not to predict scores, right?
Right. Yeah. There's just
But
no way.
yeah, they had St. Francis winning by a lot in this
Right.
game,
Mm-hmm.
but Kenwood, very talented team, and they obviously showed that in this game in pushing St. Francis to the very last couple minutes of the game. So, kudos to Kenwood, but St. Francis is uber talented. We know on both sides of the ball, and they're going to be a handful for a lot of teams this
Yeah,
year.
they are.
Yeah.
Joe, I think Kenwood plays someone this week in the sea. Is it St. Viator? Maybe. Anyway, yeah, I
That's a good
think we
question.
get a chance to see Kenwood again against someone.
Oh, yeah, they did the same thing last year. Remember, they played a couple teams in the Chicago Catholic League the first two games of the year,
Yeah, but they seem
and
better.
yeah, and I give them kudos for that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Not only are they talented and a good football team, but they don't shy away from good competition right up front because I feel like They want to be in the conversation, and the way to be in the conversation is to play some of these really good teams.
Yeah, so we'll get another look at them, and I think it's Saint Viator, but I have to double check.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll do that. We've
All right.
got
Yep.
episode coming up, our prognosticus episode coming up this week. Well, we'll predict some of the games and who we think is going to win, and we'll be able to tell people if Kenwood is playing St. Viator, Dan. Yeah. All right,
What about
so
that
let's move.
coverage again? Yeah.
Yes, top-notch coverage here at
Yes.
the Varsity Voices. Yeah. Um, all right, so Joliet Catholic and Lions. We talked about how we really were interested in seeing this game. We know how good LT is. They were really good last year, and they kind of reloaded for this year. Joliet Catholic obviously lost a ton of players to graduation last year, a ton of really good players. They've got talent coming back. Obviously, Joliet Catholic always does, but this was something that was going to be a test for them, and it turned out to be that way, Dan.
Yeah, 24-14 loss to LT. I was surprised their defense seemed to relent a little bit. I expected the offense to take some time,
Yeah,
with all new players. But LT, again, that's a tough schedule. LT is very good, one of the top teams in the
yeah,
state.
yeah.
So, no hanging their heads for Joliet Catholic, but they're gonna have to move on and get better. Um, and I know we didn't say it's BATW time, but
Yeah, right.
but just look at their
Not
schedule.
yet, not yet. I know their
Yeah,
schedule is tough.
Glenbard West next week, and so
Yeah,
but hey, we know that they are tough as nails. It would not surprise me to see them bounce back. They're going to win at least one game that they might not be predicted to win. So
hmm
it'll be interesting to watch Joliet Catholic, and I think they have a chance to still obviously have a really good season. Get far in the playoffs, but it's going to be a challenge.
yeah. It is. It's going to be interesting to watch this year for Joliet Catholic, and we will be watching. But I think this may be one of the more challenging years for them. Probably in the past, who knows, 5 years, several years, whatever you want to say. But I think this will be a real test for Joliet Catholic this season coming up. Because
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Like a lot of these teams, Joe, they'll probably they as much as anyone will look better as they go, as they get more time together, on the offensive side of the ball.
yeah, yeah.
Because
And
part of
you
their
as
part of their deal is to control the clock, right? Your defense looks a
right,
lot better when it's on the field, minimally. But if you can't do that, it just you get worn down a little bit. So we'll see
yeah.
how if they can pick it up offensively a little bit.
Okay. All right. So next game here in the Orange Division was Providence again, against Wheaton Academy. Dan, another good game, one we were looking forward to, like a lot of other ones. Providence came out on top in this.
Yeah, they looked big, fast, and skilled in a very convincing victory over a good program in Wheaton Academy. It's a great start for Providence. They had touchdowns through the air, on the ground. Xavier Coleman was outstanding. They had they may have played a couple quarterbacks as well. Uh, I could be getting my Green Catholic League teams mixed up, but yeah, they looked very good. 7 touchdowns. It was a close game to start, but they just pulled away. They pulled away, and they were clearly the better team as the game wore on.
Yeah. And last year, we I think the first game of the year, Providence played Wheaton North, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
another tough
Yeah,
opponent. And I think they may have lost in overtime or lost in the
tough.
last play or two of the game,
Yeah,
something like that, which was a tough start for them. I think that kind of affected them, going forward for the next couple of games. This win in a fairly convincing fashion here, I think bodes well for Providence this year.
yeah. This division is going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, it is. It is. All right. So the next game in the Orange Division is the Notre Dame Washington game. Um, Notre Dame, new head coach, Dan DeFranza, um, wanted to get off on a good note here, and he did. Although it took a while, didn't it, for them to kind of get their feet underneath them and get some points on the board.
Yeah, they did use two quarterbacks. It could be Notre Dame that I was thinking about, but their strength is their ground game. Troy Nightingale was really good. You know, he's still not really big. He's listed at 180. I think we talked about. I don't know if he's that big, but he is
Yeah, it's
he
hard.
runs like he's 180 because he is tough to bring down.
Yeah,
He does not go down. You rarely get a good shot on him. And then they had a really opportunistic defense. You know, Alex Watulowicz, Luzak, Ryan Cisneros. You know, their back seven I thought played really well. Alex Watulowicz was all over the field. I think he had 13 tackles, one tackle for loss, one or two tackles for loss, but he was all over. You know, their defensive backs played really well. I liked how they played. Washington's a good team. You know, they had they capitalized on some mistakes from Washington late in the game.
yeah, yeah. In
That's what you have
Washington,
to do.
it is. If you want to win close games like this, you've got to capitalize on mistakes. And, a lot of times, coaching for sure weighs into that, I think. And Notre Dame took advantage of some of those mistakes and pulls out a win here. So, really good win for Coach DeFranza in his first game as head coach, and I'm interested to see how they kind of grow and progress, over the course of the next 8 games here.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. That is, they can be fun to watch, and just watching those running backs, do a good job. It's exciting.
Yeah. All right. So we'll move to the Purple Division and
Purple. All right.
Purple. Another new head coach here in Robbie Gold at St. Viator, and they took on Marian Catholic. Uh, I think both of us, Dan, picked Marian Catholic in our prognosticus episode this past week. And how hard is it to say we were wrong?
Good for Robbie
We're
Gould.
wrong a lot, so it's
Yeah,
not that hard
yeah,
anymore.
right. It
Yeah.
gets easier
Yeah.
and easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, St. Viator won the first game of the season for their sixth straight year, which is kind
Yeah.
of cool, and good for Robbie Gould as his first victory in the conference. They showed some serious defensive chops, Joe, which is really good. I don't know that
Mm-hmm.
they had that last year. They forced 5 turnovers.
Yeah.
Had a safety that they forced. Marian Catholic showed a lot of resiliency coming back from being down 20-6 in the fourth quarter. So they definitely have something to build on. One of those games where they can really use the film to show how they get better. And St. Viator gets a really, really much needed victory to start the season.
Yeah, they do. And I'm sure they are happy there. And Coach Gold, I'm sure very, you know, it, when you talk about their defense and how good their defense, or maybe their defense showed up more so than maybe it did last year, that may be a formula for them going forward.
Yeah.
So, I'm not sure how many points we're going to score. We lost a lot of talent on the offensive side of the ball, but if we've got a stout defense, that's going to keep us in games.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right. So to me, maybe the most surprising game of the weekend. But as I've had a chance to look at it and think about the two teams here, maybe not as surprising as I thought, and I'm sure it's not as surprising to you as it was to me. But the DePaul Prep Fenwick game, Fenwick just dominating in this game on both sides of the ball, Dan, which really surprised me a lot against DePaul Prep. 4A state champs last year, but Fenwick, to me, and some of the stuff, some of the clips that I saw, they were ready for game one, weren't they?
Oh yeah, they
Yes.
they dominated in every facet, like you said, and our guest, we had Tommy Thies on, said he was going to be a big part of the offense. Their offense looked great. He had 2 touchdowns. Jamin Williams was near perfect, passing the ball. He is on time. The guy does not necessarily look like the prototypical quarterback, big, tall, but man, is he good. He puts the ball right there. He runs their offense so well, and there were some mistakes by DePaul Prep, but it wasn't like it wasn't like they were completely overmatched from a size standpoint. I think they might have been bigger than Fenwick,
Yeah.
but Fenwick just throttled them in a surprise game and kind of a statement for Fenwick. They looked as good as anyone I saw this past weekend.
Yeah, so they lived up to your hashtag for them, Dan, right?
Oh, they knock your block off.
Knock your block off.
They knock your block off. They still do. Yep.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Yeah. So, who does Fenwick play next week? Do you know?
Yes. They
All
play
right.
Oak Park River Forest
Oh, okay. All
rivalry
right.
game. Yep.
Yep, for sure. Okay. All right, good. So let's move on to St. Patrick and Yorkville. So St. Patrick, another new head coach here under Tom Zibikowski. Now they fall to Yorkville 14-7 in Coach Zibikowski's debut. And unfortunately, that's their 7th straight loss going back to last year, and I'm sure they wanted to kind of turn that around. But St. Pat's defense was really stingy throughout this game, but had a couple of breakdowns where they couldn't contain the speedy wide receiver for Yorkville. I think his name is T.J. Harland, who looked really good, by the way. On
Was he
offense,
wide out, Joe, or was he running back?
no, he was a wideout.
Was he? Okay. All right.
Yeah, yeah, but they use him all over the field because he's got that kind of he's one of those electric players, in my opinion. That he's got the speed. He's not real big, but he's got a quick first couple steps, and he's gone after that. So, I'm not sure St. Pat's is ready for that kind of speed for them. On offense, it looks like St. Pat's is going to try and rely on the big offensive line. St. Pat's, by the way, is huge. Their offensive line,
Yeah.
their
Oh, yeah.
defensive line are enormous. But I just felt like, in watching some of the stuff that they could not quite get on track in this game. Um, you know, we'll see if Coach Zibikowski can get his first win next week. They take on Larkin, who they beat last year. They've got a good opportunity or good chance to get a win in week 2 here. But, I really felt like in watching this game that St. Pat's was, still kind of building towards something and still trying to get their feet underneath themselves.
Yeah, I like the scheduling early on. That I thought it would be a good test. Kind of turned out, kind of how I thought it might. I think I predicted. I can't remember who I predicted, but
I think you like St. Pat's.
Oh yeah, because they were my surprise team. So I'm going to still stick with them. I am still wearing the shamrock, but
wearing the shamrock.
But we'll see if they can get a victory next week because this was tough to come out to Yorkville and play.
It was, yeah. All right, so the last game in the Purple Division, Bennett and Hillcrest, and you and I were out at this game, Dan, with our sideline show, and we were able to see both of these teams up very close and personal, and Bennett comes away with a win in their first game. What did you think of this one?
Their kicking game was a difference. Michael Conway, 3
good
field
kicker.
goals.
Really good.
Yeah, and really good. Strong leg. Junior Luca Diomede with a kickoff return for a touchdown. I also really liked how Bennett ran to the football. I think they have a new defensive coordinator, so they are really, you could see that's been a focus, and they did a really nice job swarming the Hillcrest offense, which was I thought was going to be really good and a good challenge for them. But they swarmed them pretty good, forced several turnovers, converted a safety. So Connor Evers, middle linebacker, played really well. Jack Clevenger, a name that we said last year, he's returning. I think he moved to defensive line. He also was pretty important, but yeah, they definitely won this game in the kicking game phase for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would think, watching this game, you're right. I was watching ESPN today, this morning, the Get Up show, and Dan Orlovsky talked about what he calls loaf plays, and loaf plays are where the offense runs by the defense and the defense doesn't stay with them. The defensive players,
Yeah,
one of the things I noticed in this game for Bennett is that they didn't have any loaf plays. You're right. Their defense and, um, you know, was stuck with Hillcrest, stuck with their players, throughout the whole game. And I really feel like that made a difference, and it allowed them to, play to a standpoint where they could have their kicker make a big difference in this game, and he did.
yeah. And if you want to search, you want to kind of get an identity at some point. And if it's we might not be huge or anything defensively or offense, but if running to the football can be something that you hang your hat on.
Yes. Yeah, and coaches always say it, right? And I think people just kind of sometimes people or players just kind of roll their eyes at
Lip
it, like,
service, yeah.
really? Yeah, we got to run to the football, but it definitely makes a difference, and made difference for Bennett in
Yeah.
this game. Yeah. All right, so let's move on to the red division, and the first game here is Marmion and Oak Forest. Now, I was a little surprised at the score, Dan. I don't know if you were, but
Yeah, I was.
I know Marmion beat them last year, and I thought Marmion was going to be taking that next step, and they may still do that. Right, this may just be kind of a blip for them, but I was expecting them to look a little better versus Oak Forest this year.
Yeah, Oak Forest, if they still run the same offense they did a few years ago, it can be a little challenge. They kind of spread out, and then they might come in and might run a little option, and so that can sometimes for new players, that can cause a problem. It doesn't seem like they had many issues offensively. Put 28 points up, but
Yeah.
I think they probably would expect their defense to be a little more stout than it was to give up 41. Now I don't know how the scoring broke down, Joe, but it'll be interesting to watch Marmion progress and see if that's a trend, for them that they have
Mm-hmm.
to find a way defensively more so than offensively this year.
Right. Okay. All right. Good. So let's move on to another game here in the Red Division. That was De La Salle versus Revis. We know some of the challenges that De La Salle had last year, and I was looking forward to seeing them come out this year and getting their team out there on the field and see how they compete. Unfortunately, they could not capitalize, and they were playing at home. By the way, they have an awesome stadium.
I love that. I love that stadium.
Yeah, I really like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they took a loss against Revis on Friday, and they fell 42-0. Um, and kind of unfortunately that continues the streak the team started last season, so that makes it kind of 6 in a row as far as losses go. And this game was essentially over by halftime. Revis scored on each of their first half possessions, and they were out to a 35-0 lead at the half, and they kind of coasted the rest of the way in. But so unfortunately for De La Salle, this wasn't the start I think they were probably hoping for. One of the things that I did see or did notice in watching some of the film on this game is that De La Salle has some talent there. I think they're
Yeah.
really young, and they don't have much size, but they do have at the skill position some really good or some budding talent there. So I think things look good for them going forward as far as maybe not this year, but maybe a year or two down the road. But they had a tough time against Revis, and I'm not sure. Next week they travel to Plainfield East, play Plainfield East, so things don't get any easier for De La Salle. So I think it's going to be a tough year for them, Dan. But there are some bright spots
Yeah.
there. I think in some of the talent that I saw on the field.
Varsity Voices message. If anyone from De La Salle's listening, stick with it. Don't
Right,
stick with it. It gets better. You might have to, even if you have to look at yourself as the foundation, of the program. Moving forward
right.
after such a tough year, stick with it. You'll be remembered for that. Even if you have what looks like it's going to be a tough year, if you can stick with it and persevere, the lessons learned, will pass down, and when they are good again, they'll remember these guys a little bit and where they came from.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a good message, Dan. And if we get a chance to talk to, the coach or any of the players from De La Salle, we will pass that on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So Leo and Dunbar, Dan. So Leo, another team that had a tough season last year, but they under new head coach Theo Hopkins, they had a good start here, right?
Yeah, they walloped Dunbar 46-2. So we're in
Yeah.
control the whole game. They looked fundamentally sound, if not very flashy. Keeping it really simple because they also very young. Several two-way players on there, so they had some guys flash on both sides of the ball this week. Junior Jabril Kanike Kanike. Someone,
It's
someone, someone tell me eventually how to
you,
pronounce that. But
you're going to have to say that all year, by the way.
I am,
So
because he's a good
you're going to
player.
have to get it right.
He's a
Right.
good
He's a
player.
good
Yeah,
player.
running back
Yeah.
and linebacker. But they like I said, they kept it simple, but they dominated, which is a really good sign. And like I said, they looked fundamentally sound, which is a really good step for them because they are also really young.
Yeah. Yep. They are. Okay. And another game here in the red division that was St. Lawrence versus King. And, I keep talking about new head coaches,
Yeah,
right? Um, so St. Lawrence took care of business in their home opener on Friday, giving new head coach Pat Swanson his first win at the helm of the Vikings. Their defense, Dan, was solid. They really stepped up, pitched a shutout, 19-0 over King. Mickey Lotus, standout defensive back, led the way with a bunch of tackles, key interception in the end zone to preserve their shutout. Their offense relied on somebody that you and I have talked about who kind of flies under the radar a bit, and that's Corey Less,
yeah,
their running back.
so good.
Yeah, we love the way he ran last year, and he kind of picked it up right where he left off last year. He scored two TDs, two TDs. They've got sophomore Noah Turner, who looks like a real player, a real good athlete. He scored another TD. So I think St. Lawrence had a really good first step here under the new coach Pat Swanson. And next week they've got a test too. They play Evanston this coming Friday, and
Yeah,
I
that'll
think
that'll be that'll be a great
I think
challenge
they'll be
for him.
ready. I mean, Coach Swanson had this team ready for week one. You could tell that by looking at that. They were ready to go, and I think they're going to be a team to be reckoned with. Throughout the whole season. So,
Yeah, and I don't care
hope
what it was, but a shutout is really good. And again, another thing
shutout
that
is
you can
big.
really build on.
Yes, I agree. Um, oh, so I said red division, but St. Lawrence was white division. Sorry
Yes.
about that. Yeah, I got ahead of myself there. All right, so we are onto the white division, and the next game here, which was a really good game, was Montini and Lumen Christi Catholic. Two state champs. I think I saw, Dan, that Lumen Christi is 14 times state champion.
Are they
Is
really?
that right?
Wow, it
Yes.
sounds like it.
In
Their name,
Michigan.
I feel like you've heard, when you follow high school football and hear some of these regional names like Moeller, but yeah, Lumen Christi, kind of a cool name too. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Very cool.
yeah.
Right.
But it was a great battle, Joe, between these two state champs. Defensive battle, kicking game, critical for Montini as Johnny Luis made a huge impact with his leg and defensively in this victory. Tip ball as well as I think 2 field goals. Tip ball that led to an interception that kind of sealed the game for him. But yeah, it was a fight, throughout the whole game, and no team ever really got going offensively where you could see they were rolling. It was field position battle. So exactly kind of what you'd expect from two really good programs.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Montini continues their winning ways. I'm sure, knowing the number of players they lost last year to graduation, there was probably this question mark or question in a lot of people's heads as to how they would do from a defensive, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But I think they came out and answered a lot of questions. I really do.
Yeah, and we'll see
Yeah.
because I think I remember hearing that Lumen Christie was replacing almost their entire offense,
Right.
right?
Yep.
So
Mm-hmm.
it was a good match to see kind of a new defense. I think Montini has 4 starters back, but
Mm-hmm.
against a rebuilding defense versus rebuilding offense. So
Right.
really good start for the Broncos.
All right. Are we riding the Bronco?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Yep, I think
All
I think
right. We'll see.
I'm in the pen with it. I'm
Okay. You're
and
in
we're
the pen.
sizing each other up.
Right. Okay. All right. So last game, Dan, in the white division and of week 1 for our coverage was Carmel versus Grays Lake Central. Carmel didn't waste any time in showing that they're ready, for the upcoming regular season.
Yeah,
Scored 52 points, 52-13 win over Grays Lake Central. They put this game out of reach really early. They jumped out to a 28-0 lead by halftime. Um, Nebraska commit quarterback Trey Taylor. He threw for 3 touchdowns. While UMass commit their wide receiver Kai Owens, he had 3 touchdowns on the day as well, both receiving and rushing. We had Trey Taylor on and we interviewed him, and he's right about Kai Owens. This guy is a player, and he's something that these every other team is going to have to game plan for. In
I'm telling
addition to
you,
Trey Taylor,
yeah, the
you got to game
receivers
plan.
in this league are just crazy good.
Unreal. So Carmel, they showed that they can score points too, multiple ways, Dan. They had a 75-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. They kicked a field goal, so, it's more than just Trey Taylor and Kai Owens. They've got talent, up and down on the offensive side of the ball. Defense showed up as well, played real well. And it'll be a test here in game 2 for them. They go to Lake Forest, who beat them last year in game
Yeah,
2, and they're going to try and avenge last year's week 2 loss, to the Scouts. But I think it'll be more telling as far as game 2 as to where Carmel is at. And we'll see. Last year they won game 1 fairly easily against Grace Lake Central, but there's just something a little bit different about watching them play this year. At least in game 1, it looks a little bit different than it did last year.
yeah. And this is a red letter game. This is a rivalry game that we learned about. We were kind of surprised last year,
Right.
seeing the how intense it was, but we learned from Coach McKee it's a rivalry.
Yeah,
And both
it is.
on the field and in the coaching staffs. So I'm definitely paying attention to this one this upcoming week.
Yeah. So before we finish up here, Dan, we've got one other thing
Oh
that
yeah,
we need to do. And up, who is that?
here he comes.
Here he comes. Yep. That's
Yep.
Zuko.
Still sound asleep. Hasn't moved.
You
He's like the
obviously
players. He's like the defensive players. They're exhausted, right? So
you don't have your speaker turned up at all, right?
yeah,
Or else he'd be standing up for sure.
for sure.
But For those who don't know, tell our listeners about our Zuko's Dog of the Week award, Dan.
Essentially, what it was, in playing with my dog, and the characteristics of his breed, he's a Rhodesian Ridgeback. I thought to myself, this is how I would want defensive players to play. He's aggressive. He is smart. He's very athletic. He's relentless.
Relentless.
He's
Yes.
relentless. He
Yes.
never. This is. It's so great to get to 7:30. That's kind of his nighttime. When he goes to bed, he
Right.
goes so hard. He bugs the crap out of me to play several times a day, whether I
Right.
want to or not. He'll show up with a football. He's got a football and a frisbee, and it's either one of the two. And but his relentless pursuit and his loyalty as well, Joe, are the things. And I thought this dog is like the perfect defensive player. So we thought, let's come up with a defensive award. The offensive guys get all the pub or most of it.
All the accolades. Yeah.
Let's come up with a defensive award that is based on some of those characteristics and guys that really jump out. Let's talk about them a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And we had some really good defensive performances in week 1, right? And it was a hard choice, Dan. Give us some of the names that you and I talked about.
Sure, we've mentioned some of them on the podcast already. So starting with Notre Dame, Alex Watulowicz, all over the field, middle linebacker, made a ton of tackles. You saw his number pop up all the time. Notre Dame, when you watch their game, you can hear the PA announcer, and he's great. He is exactly what you want. Who made the tackle? How many yards that they gave? Everything. But his name, Watulowicz, over and over and over again, had at least 1 or 2 tackles for loss. He was all over the field. Another one who you just mentioned, Mickey Lotus for St. Lawrence. You get a shutout. Someone's got to be nominated for Dog of the Week. So another all over the field type guy
to that.
Yep. Yeah, interception. Did a great job in helping St. Lawrence shut out King. We mentioned this one as well, Johnny Luis from Montini. I think he had the field goals, but he also had the key tipped pass that forced the interception late in the game. So he's
sacks,
right up there as well.
Right?
What's that?
Yeah, couple of sacks.
Yeah, a couple of sacks
too.
as well.
Yep.
Sorry, I didn't mention that. Yeah, you brought up Laddie Assay. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that properly for Montini as well. Another all over the field guy, and that's kind of the point to this. These guys tend to show themselves during the games that we can see. So he's another one. What were Laddie's? Did you have Laddie's stats, Joe? He had a pick, right?
He did have a pick. I think he had 11 tackles. 5 of those were tackles for loss.
Wow, that's really good.
And a pick. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a name, Dan, you and I, I'm not sure what year he is, but we didn't talk about him last year at all. So he kind of burst onto the scene, in game 1 here for Montini.
Yeah, there's a few guys on here like this, Joe. Connor Evers for Bennett.
Yeah.
All over the field. All over the field. I think he's a converted defensive back, but so he runs really well. We talked about Bennett running to the football. Connor Evers leads the way. I mean, the kid is all over, sideline to sideline, makes a lot of plays, at least 1 tackle for loss. I think when I was there, it could have been a sack, but he's a kid who's all over the field. Definitely going to be someone we watch this year. Joe, you brought up Jalen Torres for St. Francis. You said he had a really nice game. He is someone that we predicted would be in this mix for Dog of the Week.
Yes, for sure.
What were the stats that you had?
I think on 6 tackles, a couple tackles for loss, and a sack as well. And a cog, just a real cog in the middle of that defensive line for St. Francis.
He's a good one. Mm-hmm. Joe, I had 2 more, that I had a hard time picking between, because, this first one, that is deserving. All these guys are deserving. When you watch, I see Joe Tamarian Garner, number 8. Oh my God, he is relentless. He is a menace in the backfield.
I liked what you texted to me earlier, Dan, after you watched him play a little bit. I think you said he's a nightmare.
He's a nightmare. He is a
Right.
nightmare. He is getting into the backfield as the
Yeah.
snap is arriving, and he shows up with attitude. Yeah,
Yeah.
he is a relentless player. Definitely one that I can't wait to watch play more this year.
Yeah. If
Because
I play defense, I want somebody to describe me as a nightmare
yes,
for sure.
that's Demarion.
Yeah.
I was like,
All right.
whoa. And
Yeah.
then this one, a bit of a surprise, maybe not. So our pick of the week, our dog of the week, Joe, who we ended
Dog of
up
the
with.
week. All right. Who is it, Dan?
All right. So with one interception, one cause fumble, two-way player, Jake Thies from Fenwick.
All
Joe,
right.
he is a
Sweet. Yeah.
player. This kid is
Yes.
a player. He is fast. He is all over the field. He had at least one or two tackles for loss that I saw doing it. He's one of these hybrid guys that may be like a safety outside linebacker type. So he's got chances to make plays all over the field, and he absolutely does. He
Yeah.
is just he is a guy, like Tommy, who we had on, and he also will knock your block off.
Right.
They represent Fenwick really well, and he is really, really good, just flying around all over the place. Like I said, he had at least when Fenwick wanted to move the ball and needed like a play on the ground, handed it to Jake Thies.
Yeah.
Really good in the backfield as well. But defensively, Joe, is where he really, really jumps off the video. So our dog of the week, Zuko's dog of the week this week, Jake Thies, Fenwick. And thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very
Crowd
much.
is very nice tonight.
Yeah.
They've been subdued to this point.
Right. They have. What I loved about watching Jake Thies play is, how you talk about speed for players. And some people just got this all out speed or straight ahead speed or whatever. But he's got this kind of game speed that you don't see all the time in different players, where he closes a gap or he hits the corner quicker than anybody else. There's just something about him that jumps off the film, as
Yep.
you say all the time.
Yeah.
And the thing I noticed about it is got game speed and toughness. So when he gets there faster than anybody else, he makes a play. I love
Yeah.
it.
You
Yeah.
you know they talk about this in scouting all the time. So if you're a guy that runs 4.5, in the 40, we want to see 4.5 on the field. And
Right.
that's like,
Yes.
to your point. That's
Yep.
that's how he plays. If whatever he can run maxed out, that's what he's running on the field. and
Yeah.
and it is fun to watch. They are a fun team to watch. They're going to be really good. Like I said, as good as any team that, and I'm gonna include Mount Carmel. They looked as good as any team that I saw this weekend.
All right. Well, good. That bodes well for them for the rest of the season. And we're going to be watching very closely, of course. Jake Thies, congratulations on winning our week one Zuko's Dog of the Week award. Well deserving. That's going to wrap up our week one recap in the Chicago Catholic League. We've already seen a taste of some of the drama, talent, and intensity that make the conference one of the best and toughest in Illinois. And I can promise you, it's only going to get better from here. So don't forget to subscribe and follow us so you don't miss any of our previews, any of our score updates, any of our recaps, and other podcasts during the season. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, this is the Varsity Voices, Chicago Catholic League Sports Talk, where Chicago Catholic League and high school athletes get the spotlight they deserve. We will talk with you soon.